Just as the tennis world was beginning to recover from one of its most controversial episodes, Jannik Sinner, the current world number 1 and the boy in the spotlight of the 2025 season, shocked everyone and set the sport on fire once again. So who picked up on the story and made sure the world heard about it? None other than Nick Kyrgios, the unrestrained voice of tennis and the player who rarely holds back anything. When Sinner announced he brought back the very fitness coach who was central to his doping scandal to his team, Kyrgios was loud and unapologetic. He took to social media with a characteristically explosive, sarcasm-laced comment. He got the same doc back. We have been played, ladies and gentlemen. Let's dive into the whole chapter behind Kyrgios' viral comment, Sinner's controversial decision, and the backlash that divided fans, players, and officials alike. So, what's Kyrgios so furious about? To understand what the fuss was about, we need to zoom back to March 2024 and Indian Wells. In that event, Jannik Sinner, a rising star but still chasing his prime form, tested positive for clostebol, a banned anabolic agent, twice. The world of sport was stunned. After all, how did a decent, humble Italian sportsman end up entangled in a doping case? The answer indicated malpractice rather than malice. According to the investigation, Giacomo Naldi, Sinner's physiotherapist, and a cut on his hand were to blame. In fact, he used a spray containing trophodermin, and the treatment contained clostebol. Naldi, who often works without gloves, performed daily massages on Sinner during the tournament, exposing him to the banned substance. Enter Umberto Ferrara, the man who handed Naldi the spray in the first place. A pharmaceutical technology graduate and Sinner's trusted fitness coach, Ferrara was actually responsible for ensuring the player was fully compliant with doping regulations. So yeah, the person responsible for ensuring Sinner's body was clean was the one who exposed him to banned substances. The public outcry ensued immediately. Naldi and Ferrara were both fired. Sinner managed to convince the investigation that he never intended any wrongdoing and received a 3-month suspension and a quiet agreement with the World Anti-Doping Agency, and the timing was perfectly convenient as it allowed him to return just before Roland Garros. He didn't even miss a single slam. Many weren't convinced that was fair. Among the many was Nick Kyrgios. We all know Nick Kyrgios as tennis's wild card. He's also quick and sharp on his tongue, and he certainly acted quickly when Sinner's case came into the spotlight. Although he wasn't the only top player to question why the Italian player had gone away without a longer ban, he was one of the loudest and most persistent voices. For example, he posted a not-so-subtle asterisk after Sinner lost to Alcaraz in the French Open and called out what he perceived to be special treatment for Sinner. So imagine Kyrgios' reaction when news broke that Jannik Sinner had rehired Umberto Ferrara, the individual responsible for the entire affair, less than a year later, and the same person he had called a liability. He got the same doc back. We have been played, ladies and gentlemen. Kyrgios' jab wasn't just sarcasm, it was frustration boiling over. However, could it ring true? Kyrgios must think many share his opinion, but didn't dare to pronounce it publicly. Finally, why would Sinner bring back the coach who almost ended his reputation and career in a humiliating scandal? Sinner's team rushed with an official explanation, explaining the decision in a brief statement. Umberto has played an important role in Jannik's development to date, and his return reflects a renewed focus on continuity and performance at the highest level. In other words, he helped Jannik win, so they invited him back to help him win more. And that's true. When Sinner went through his meteoric rise in 2022 and 2023, Ferrara was there all along the way. What's more, Ferrara's guidance led Sinner to multiple Grand Slam quarterfinals, a trophy at the Canadian Open, and a physical game that the Italian had never possessed before. Before the fallout, the coach was also a key component of Sinner's 2024 Australian Open triumph, which marked his first Grand Slam title. All that was left in the shadow of the doping event, though. Once all traces led to Ferrara, Sinner said he was no longer confident in him and needed clean air after the scandal. But now, less than a year after, he's back in Monte Carlo, under the supervision of the same man once considered too compromised and risky to rely on. Talk about a stunning reversal. So here's the question. Did Sinner forgive Ferrara, or do the victories trump bad blood between them? Many latched onto Kyrgios' post on X and added their own 2 cents to the story. Some even flamed Kyrgios for desperately digging into the story with no reason. Feels like you're going a bit far with this manhunt, wrote someone. We liked you more when you wouldn't bitch and moan about other players, added another. Still, many others echoed the sentiment expressed in the viral post. We have been played. Hashtag began trending. Former doubles world number 1 Paul McNamee framed it as one of the most astonishing PR moves in tennis history. Social commentator Pavi G didn't mince words. Sinner has been badly advised. I think this is their worst decision yet. It really does make a mockery of the ITIA and WADA. The public response was marked with outrage, defensiveness, and confusion. The public was split into two conflicting sides. Is this a betrayal of sports ethics, or just a player returning to the tried and true formula? But ultimately, who is Ferrara? Ferrara joined Sinner's team back in 2022 and was widely considered to be the primary reason for the Italian's body transformation and Grand Slam-worthy performance. He was also hired for his pharmaceutical background, but the asset turned out to be much more complicated than anyone could have guessed. According to the International Tennis Integrity Agency, Ferrara was aware that the spray he gave Naldi contained clostebol. Allegedly, he warned Naldi about the substance, but he was also familiar with the fact that Naldi rarely worked on Sinner without gloves. At the very least, that was negligence. Sinner was cleared of intent. However, Ferrara never received any formal sanction. After he was sacked, Ferrara teamed up with Matteo Berrettini and kept silent on the case. However, in April 2025, he finally spoke. "I was hurt. I certainly wouldn't rely on the behavior of others again." Yes, that meant he placed the blame entirely on Naldi, but what changed for Sinner? Certain insider rumors indicate that the break with Djokovic's former coaches, Badio and Panici, left Sinner exposed and vulnerable ahead of the US Open. Others claim that Ferrara was never really out of the picture, but lurking behind the corner, plotting his comeback. Whatever the case, Sinner's decision has exposed tennis's fragile relationship with accountability. Let's keep in mind one thing, Sinner is in the center of his most dominating season ever. He's got the Australian Open and Wimbledon trophies on his shelf. He became runner-up to Alcaraz in a 5-set Roland Garros duel. Today, he's by far the most likely favorite to win the US Open. But now Ferrara's back in the mix, and every victory will carry a scar of doubt. Everything the Italian achieves will be scrutinized, and every failed doping test from any player will be a fresh cut on the old wound, and voices like Kyrgios will make sure the moment is not forgotten. This story is not about 2 failed doping tests and 1 compromised coach. This story is about trust in tennis, transparency in the sport, and the healthy spirit of partnership and competition. Sinner believes the world has moved on. He suggested so during Wimbledon when he said, "I think people kind of have forgotten already a little bit what happened." Well, guess who didn't forget? Kyrgios, and many others who share his views. This story is far from over in fact. It may mark the start of a troubling trend. Star players making controversial decisions with little consequence. The US Open is looming over the horizon. Sinner will be watched more closely than ever before, and social media will be waiting with pitchforks for even the slightest mistake. The line between redemption and becoming a renegade is frequently as thin as a thread, and Jannik Sinner, the world number 1, is walking a thin line with this step. Is it a sign of courage or a sign of carelessness? One thing is certain, the line between redemption and regression is razor thin, and Jannik Sinner, the clean-cut champion turned comeback kid, has just taken a very risky step. Was it courage? Was it carelessness? Or, as Kyrgios said, have we really been played? So what do you think? Was Sinner's call right, or did he just undo almost a year of damage control in one swift blow? Is Nick Kyrgios right about his suspicions? Keep your wits and share your thoughts in the comments.